Good evening. What we're about to share with you represents one of the most dramatic shifts in global military power in modern history. A development that has left defense establishments around the world reeling, forced military strategists to tear up decades of planning, and fundamentally rewritten the rules of great power competition. The People's Republic of China has just pulled back the curtain on what may be its most ambitious military project ever conceived: the H-20 strategic stealth bomber. For years, intelligence agencies suspected its existence. For years, analysts debated its capabilities. For years, the consensus held that if such an aircraft was being developed, it remained far from operational readiness, perhaps a decade or more away from taking to the skies. That consensus just shattered into a million pieces. In a stunning display of strategic messaging, Beijing has released crystal-clear imagery and video documentation of a fully functional stealth bomber, an aircraft engineered to slip through the world's most advanced radar networks and carry nuclear weapons to virtually any location on the planet. This isn't conceptual artwork or distant satellite photography. This is high-definition footage of an operational weapons system being flown by trained crews with unmistakable confidence. The implications cannot be overstated. The United States has enjoyed uncontested superiority in strategic aviation since the final days of World War II. That advantage has been the bedrock upon which American military strategy rests. As of today, that foundation has developed serious cracks. Welcome to HEMS Reports. I'm Dav, and tonight we're diving deep into China's H-20 revelation, examining what capabilities this aircraft brings to the table, how Beijing managed to develop it faster than anyone anticipated, and why officials in Washington are calling this the most consequential strategic surprise since the Soviet Union launched humanity's first artificial satellite into orbit. To understand the magnitude of this moment, we need to step back and examine the assumptions that have guided American defense planning for the past 3 decades. The United States Air Force operates the B-2 Spirit, a stealth bomber that first became operational in 1997. Even today, nearly 3 decades after its introduction, the B-2 remains a technological marvel, capable of evading virtually any air defense system ever constructed, delivering both conventional explosives and nuclear warheads with extraordinary accuracy. The Air Force is currently testing its successor, the B-21 Raider, which promises to extend American dominance in strategic bombing for another generation. Military planners in the Pentagon operated under what seemed like a reasonable set of assumptions. Yes, China was modernizing its armed forces at an unprecedented pace. Yes, Beijing had demonstrated remarkable advances in missile technology, naval construction, and cyber warfare capabilities. But strategic bombers? That was different. That required mastery of multiple cutting-edge technologies simultaneously. Exotic materials that absorb radar waves, propulsion systems that balance power with minimal detectability, avionics that integrate weapons, sensors, and communications into a cohesive combat platform. American intelligence assessments suggested China was struggling with these challenges, particularly with engine technology. The timeline for an operational Chinese stealth bomber stretched into the mid-2030s at the earliest. Defense budgets reflected these assumptions. Force deployments in the Pacific followed from these calculations. Strategic planning built upon the foundation that America would maintain overwhelming air superiority for at least another decade. Every single one of those assumptions has just been invalidated. The footage broadcast by Chinese state media doesn't show tentative test flights of an experimental prototype. It shows a refined, production-standard weapons system being operated by crews who clearly know their aircraft intimately. It demonstrates technology that not only rivals what America currently fields, but in certain aspects may actually surpass it. The comfortable timeline has evaporated. China hasn't just caught up. They've leapfrogged years of projected development in what appears to have been a carefully orchestrated crash program. And now, defense officials across Washington are asking the most uncomfortable question possible. What else have we gotten wrong? The manner in which China chose to unveil the H-20 was as significant as the aircraft itself. During a special broadcast on China Central Television, deliberately scheduled to coincide with the People's Liberation Army Air Force anniversary, viewers around the world watched as aerial cameras captured an aircraft that immediately commanded attention. A flying wing configuration, superficially similar to America's B-2, but with distinctive design choices that aviation specialists recognized immediately as potentially significant. The wingspan appears enormous. Preliminary estimates suggest it exceeds 50 meters, placing it in the same class as the B-2 Spirit's 52-meter span. The leading edge exhibits a more aggressive sweep compared to American designs, hinting at optimization for higher velocity flight profiles. Engine air intakes, visible in multiple camera angles, are recessed deep within the fuselage, a design approach that dramatically minimizes radar reflection at the expense of tremendous engineering complexity. And the skin of the aircraft, every visible surface displays the characteristic smoothness and precise panel alignment that indicates serious attention to minimizing radar cross-section. This level of manufacturing precision requires state-of-the-art facilities and rigorous quality control. The broadcast continued for approximately 10 minutes, methodically showing the bomber from numerous perspectives, in flight against clear skies, on the tarmac surrounded by ground support equipment, being serviced by maintenance personnel in specialized facilities. Every frame was calculated to convey a specific message. Beijing wanted the world to see this. After maintaining operational security throughout what must have been years of development, they chose this precise moment to go public. The decision was strategic, and the timing was anything but coincidental. The American reaction was swift and unmistakably alarmed. Within hours of the Chinese broadcast, the Pentagon assembled an emergency assessment session. Senior leadership from the Air Force, Defense Intelligence Agency, and National Security Council converged to analyze what had just been revealed. Early assessments that found their way to journalists described the development as deeply concerning and significantly ahead of our intelligence projections. One senior defense official, granted anonymity to speak candidly, put it more directly: "We were tracking this program. What we weren't tracking was how far along it actually was. This represents a serious gap in our understanding." The Air Force Chief of Staff released a carefully worded public statement within 24 hours. The People's Republic of China has demonstrated remarkable progress in advanced aerospace technologies, the statement read. The United States remains committed to maintaining our technological advantage and will pursue all necessary measures to ensure our strategic capabilities remain without equal. The measured language concealed considerable anxiety within defense circles. Behind classified doors, difficult conversations were taking place. How did Chinese engineers overcome the technical obstacles so quickly? Which technologies were developed through indigenous innovation versus acquired through espionage or illicit technology transfer? How many of these bombers are currently operational, and what is the production rate? Most critically, what does this development mean for American military strategy throughout the Pacific theater? Finding definitive answers to these questions will require months of intelligence analysis. But certain immediate conclusions were impossible to avoid. The era of assumed American air superiority has ended. A new chapter has begun, and the opening lines are troubling. Okay, let's examine the technical dimensions of what China has revealed, because honestly, the engineering details really illuminate the strategic implications here. So, first up, the airframe design. The H-20 employs a flying wing configuration, the identical basic architecture found in both the B-2 Spirit and the developmental B-21 Raider. This design philosophy is just optimal for stealth operations because it minimizes surfaces that can reflect radar energy back toward detection systems. A proper flying wing eliminates vertical stabilizers, external weapons hardpoints, and protruding engine housings, all features that significantly increase radar detectability. Chinese designers, it seems, have created an airframe roughly equivalent in size to the B-2, suggesting comparable payload capacity and operational range. Initial technical assessments estimate a combat radius approaching 4,000 kilometers, sufficient to reach American facilities in Guam from mainland Chinese territory, or to strike targets throughout the entire Pacific region without requiring aerial refueling. And, with refueling support, the operational envelope expands dramatically. Now let's talk about the propulsion challenge, because this is where Chinese progress becomes genuinely surprising. Stealth bombers demand engines that balance several competing requirements: substantial thrust, minimal infrared signature, and the ability to be deeply buried within the airframe without sacrificing performance. These are, frankly, extraordinarily difficult engineering challenges. Western intelligence agencies believe China remained years behind in advanced turbofan technology suitable for low observable aircraft. But the H-20 footage suggests that assessment was incorrect. The engines visible in ground-level shots appear to represent a new design, possibly the WS-20 power plant or an even more advanced variant specifically engineered for reduced detectability. If Chinese engineers have genuinely solved the propulsion problem, they've cleared the highest technical barrier standing between them and strategic bomber capability. Moving on to avionics and integration, contemporary stealth bombers aren't simply stealthy airframes. They're networked weapons platforms that fuse radar systems, electronic warfare capabilities, communications links, and weapons management into unified combat systems. China has demonstrated remarkable progress in military electronics over the past decade. Their fourth and fifth generation fighters, modern surface combatants, and integrated air defense networks showcase sophisticated sensor fusion and network-centric warfare capabilities. It's entirely reasonable to assume the H-20 incorporates these advances, potentially including data linking with satellite reconnaissance assets and coordination with other strike platforms. Finally, weapons payload. While the released footage carefully avoided showing weapons loading or deployment, the aircraft's internal weapons bay appears substantial. Defense analysts estimate capacity for multiple long-range cruise missiles or a significant conventional bomb load, potentially including nuclear gravity bombs or nuclear-tipped cruise missiles. This is, after all, the fundamental purpose of a strategic bomber delivering nuclear weapons against an adversary's homeland infrastructure. China now possesses that capability in a form designed to penetrate American defensive systems. The H-20 represents far more than just another aircraft in China's inventory. It completes what strategists call the nuclear triad, the three-legged deterrent force that has defined great power nuclear strategy since the Cold War. Like the United States and Russia before it, China has long pursued comprehensive nuclear deterrence built on three pillars: ground-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and bomber-delivered weapons. China has possessed the first two components for years. Their DF-41 intercontinental missiles can reach any location on Earth. Their Type 094 Jin-class submarines carry nuclear-armed missiles that provide assured second strike capability. But China's bomber force has always been the weakest element of their triad. The H-6 bomber, derived from 1950s-era Soviet designs, is capable but cannot survive against modern integrated air defense systems. It's useful for conventional strike missions within protected airspace, but it's not a credible strategic penetration bomber. The H-20 transforms that equation entirely. For the first time, China fields a bomber that can penetrate sophisticated defensive networks, survive to deliver its weapons, and potentially return to base. This completes their strategic triad, granting China the same operational flexibility that only the United States and Russia have enjoyed. But honestly, the implications extend far beyond nuclear deterrence scenarios. A stealth bomber capable of ranging across the Pacific possesses enormous conventional warfare applications. It can threaten American military installations throughout Guam, Japan, and potentially even Hawaii. It can hold aircraft carrier strike groups at risk while they're operating in the Western Pacific. It complicates any defense of Taiwan by threatening the rear area bases and logistics hubs from which American forces would necessarily operate. The H-20 isn't merely a nuclear delivery platform. It's a tool that projects Chinese military power across the entire Pacific Basin and potentially beyond. As analysts conducted frame-by-frame examination of the released footage, additional details emerged that, honestly, amplified concerns throughout defense establishments worldwide. The video appears to have been captured at multiple geographic locations, suggesting China may already have established several bases capable of supporting stealth bomber operations. Ground-level shots reveal what appear to be purpose-built, climate-controlled hangars, specialized facilities required to maintain the sensitive radar-absorbent coatings that give stealth aircraft their low observable properties. These coatings degrade rapidly when exposed to moisture, temperature fluctuations, and contaminants, requiring rigorous maintenance protocols. Multiple distinct airframes are visible across different segments of the footage, though careful camera work and editing prevent accurate counting. Conservative estimates suggest at least 5 separate aircraft appear in the released material, implying a production run that's already substantial. This isn't a handful of hand-built prototypes. This appears to be serial production. Perhaps most telling, the crews shown operating and servicing the aircraft display the confidence of personnel who have completed extensive training cycles. There's no hesitation, no uncertainty. These are people who know their systems thoroughly. All of this evidence points toward a single conclusion. The H-20 program isn't merely operational in some limited sense. It's maturing. China may already possess a full squadron or more of these bombers. Production lines may be generating new airframes on a regular schedule. And crews have likely been training for years, developing tactics and procedures that American forces will eventually have to counter. The scale of investment this represents is staggering, potentially tens of billions of dollars invested over multiple decades. China committed those resources while maintaining extraordinary operational security, then revealed the program only when they were ready to demonstrate an operational capability to the world. This is strategic patience executed at a level American political systems rarely achieve. History offers a useful parallel for understanding this moment's significance. In October 1957, the Soviet Union successfully launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, into Earth orbit. The event shocked the United States, which had assumed technological superiority over its Cold War adversary. Sputnik demonstrated that Soviet science and engineering was far more advanced than American intelligence had believed. The satellite itself was relatively simple, but the rocket that carried it into space could just as easily carry a nuclear warhead to any target in North America. Sputnik triggered a massive American response. Defense spending surged. NASA was created to coordinate space efforts. Missile development programs received accelerated funding and priority. And perhaps most significantly, it forced a fundamental reassessment of Soviet technological capabilities and strategic intentions. The H-20 revelation may prove similarly consequential for our current era. Like Sputnik, it demonstrates that a rival power has achieved a capability that American planners believed remained years in the future. Like Sputnik, it challenges fundamental assumptions about the technological balance between competing powers. And like Sputnik, it will almost certainly trigger a significant American response, though the precise form that response will take remains uncertain. The parallel isn't perfect, of course. The United States in 2026 possesses far more advanced military technology than existed in 1957. The B-21 Raider, currently in development, is designed specifically to maintain American advantage in strategic bombing. But the comfortable timeline that assumed American dominance would remain unchallenged for the foreseeable future has been disrupted. China isn't merely catching up anymore. In strategic bomber technology, they may have already caught up, or possibly even surged ahead in specific capabilities. That realization changes everything. The strategic dilemma at hand, well, what makes this moment so consequential is the immense pressure it places on American strategic planning across multiple dimensions. The United States has constructed its entire Pacific strategy on the foundation of air superiority. American contingency plans for defending Taiwan assume U.S. aircraft can operate with relative freedom, conducting strikes against Chinese forces while absorbing acceptable losses. American plans for protecting treaty allies like Japan and South Korea presume that U.S. air power can effectively deter or defeat Chinese aggression. And, American plans for power projection throughout the Indo-Pacific region assume that carrier strike groups can operate without facing threats they cannot adequately counter. The H-20 challenges every single one of these foundational assumptions. An adversary equipped with stealth bombers can threaten the forward bases from which American aircraft must operate. An adversary with long-range precision strike capability can hold aircraft carriers at risk far from their operational objectives. An adversary with credible nuclear delivery systems can escalate any confrontation to existential stakes. American military planners now must reconsider scenarios they believed they understood thoroughly. What happens if China can strike Guam with relative impunity, degrading or destroying the facilities American forces would depend on? What happens if carrier strike groups must operate beyond the combat radius of their own aircraft to remain safe from Chinese strikes? What happens if the assumption of escalation dominance, that America can always match and exceed any Chinese military move, proves false? These questions have no simple answers. Finding those answers has become urgent. The official American response has been carefully calibrated, acknowledging the development while attempting to project calm confidence. The White House issued a statement noting that the United States is fully aware of China's ongoing military modernization programs and remains firmly committed to maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific region. The Secretary of Defense, speaking to journalists at the Pentagon, offered more specific comments. We have long anticipated that China would eventually develop advanced strategic bomber capabilities. The timeline may have accelerated beyond some projections, but the fundamental strategic balance remains stable. The United States possesses unmatched power projection capabilities across multiple domains, and we will continue investing in maintaining our technological edge. Behind the reassuring public statements, however, intensive activity is underway throughout the defense establishment. The B-21 Raider program has reportedly received accelerated priority status, with pressure mounting to bring the new bomber to operational capability as rapidly as possible without compromising testing protocols. Air defense programs for Guam and other critical Pacific installations are undergoing comprehensive review and potential expansion. Intelligence collection assets are being redirected to gather additional information about the H-20's performance characteristics and deployment patterns. Diplomatic efforts have intensified to reassure allies, particularly Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Taiwan, that American security commitments remain credible and will be honored. These consultations are critical because Allied confidence in American military capability underpins the entire network of Pacific alliances. The calm public facade conceals a scramble to comprehend and respond to a strategic surprise that caught the national security establishment substantially off guard. Chinese President Xi Jinping addressed the H-20 reveal in remarks delivered to senior military commanders, portions of which were broadcast on state media. The H-20 represents a historic milestone in the modernization of our national defense, Xi declared. It demonstrates conclusively that the Chinese people, under the leadership of the party, can achieve any technological objective we commit ourselves to pursuing. He continued. For too long, certain powers have believed they could intimidate China through displays of military technology. They believed we lacked the capability to match their advancements. Today, we have proven those assumptions incorrect. Xi concluded with a statement clearly aimed at both domestic and international audiences. The H-20 is not a weapon of aggression. It is a shield for the Chinese nation. It guarantees that no power can threaten our sovereignty, our territorial integrity, or our peaceful development. It embodies our national will and our determination never again to be bullied by foreign powers. The speech was meticulously crafted. For domestic Chinese audiences, it represented a moment of national pride, validation of decades of investment and sacrifice to rebuild China's technological and military capabilities. For the United States and its allies, it served as a warning: the era of unchallenged American military dominance is ending. Xi's words will be analyzed in capitals around the globe, but their core meaning is unmistakable. China intends to be recognized as a military peer of the United States. With the H-20, they've taken a significant step toward that objective. The H-20's emergence raises profound questions for American allies throughout the Pacific region. Japan, which hosts numerous American military facilities on its territory, must now confront the reality that those installations could be targeted by stealth aircraft that may not be detectable until weapons are already in flight. This fundamentally changes the risk calculation for Japanese participation in any potential conflict. South Korea, already within range of Chinese conventional missiles, faces an additional threat vector that complicates defensive planning and potentially undermines deterrence stability. Taiwan, the most likely flashpoint for U.S.-China military confrontation, must reckon with an adversary that can now strike from multiple directions with weapons specifically designed to penetrate defensive systems. The H-20 adds another layer of complexity to what is already an extraordinarily difficult defensive challenge. Australia, which has positioned itself as America's key strategic partner in the Indo-Pacific, must consider whether its own military facilities could become targets in any major confrontation, extending Chinese reach far beyond what was previously possible.